or actually put it in the blue bag. It's on Bree's desk.
Good morning all, and welcome to the New Learner Welcome Forum. I'm just going to do a quick introduction. Dr. Jeffrey A. Olson serves as the president of Nightingale College after previously serving as the vice president of learner experience and provost at the college. He has dedicated 7 years of services to the college and has nearly 2 decades of educational experience in a variety of public, private, for-profit or not-for-profit, corporate, and healthcare settings in both classroom and administrative capacities. His dissertation was a phenomenological study of teacher orientation to the subject of social studies and the perception, application, and use of technology aligned to that orientation. Dr. Olson holds a bachelor's degree in history from Brigham Young University, a master's degree in secondary social studies education from Pacific Lutheran University, a master's degree in instructional design and technology from Western Illinois University, and a doctorate degree in instructional design and learning sciences from Utah State University. And it is his birthday today. Happy birthday and welcome Dr. Jeffrey A. Olson.
Thank you. Yes, it is my birthday, and I'm excited to actually be here for it. So we've got a couple of things as we're getting started in here. For those of you who are online, we did start just a moment later. That was because of a little glitch in getting the food out. We are at noon on the East Coast. So all of our learners who are here with us live wanted to make sure we had food ready to go. It took a minute to get that out. So if you hear a clink or a ding from a plate, that's what's happening. We're having some food. So we wish you all could be with us. We apologize that you're not, but just a brief awareness there about what you may hear in the background. It's all good. A couple more things. This is the start of National Nurses Week. So we're excited the semester begins right at the top of National Nurses Week. I was watching some morning TV this morning, and they made there's some beautiful things, tributes that are coming out. Just wanted to make sure everyone's aware of that. It's also on the 12th Florence Nightingale's birthday. Obviously, our college is named after the incredible impact that she had on the field of nursing. We want to recognize her at the start of this experience. And of course, it's the start of the summer semester. A couple of other announcements in there. We do have just 2 things from the finance team just to make everyone aware. One of them is, if you look in the catalog, it does make mention that people should be on a payment plan, right? If you're not on a payment plan, this really is going to impact more of our veteran learners who have been in the program for some time, who may have not always been on that payment plan. If you're not on a plan by the end of the add drop period, you will be locked out of your courses. That is in the catalog. It has been forever. It hasn't always been enforced as impactfully as it may have been. We just want to make everyone aware. If you have any question about where you are in that system, there's a communication coming out today that will walk you through how to take a look at your own payment situation. And if you have any questions, there's some numbers and information you can reach out to. By all means, just make sure you're in the clear. If there's any question on that, we just want to make sure you're all taken care of. It doesn't mean you have to make a big payment right here at the top. We just need to make sure you're on a plan. So that's all it is. Just want to make sure you're aware. The other thing in here is we are really pushing right now to try to support all of you with these funding options and with your finances. And so we are working on trying to find sponsorships for as many learners as we can. Now, what that means in sponsorships is that we're trying to connect learners with employers. And that means that instead of doing a big sign-on bonus when you start, they'll help pay for your education while you're in. That way, when you end, you may have an employment, guaranteed employment for maybe a year or 2 afterwards, but you should have little to no debt, ideally, is the plan of what we're trying to set up there. So there will be another communication that goes out today that will be information on how to fill in your information so that we know who you are, where you're located, what you're kind of hoping for in the idea of a sponsorship, so we can start to go through the process of trying to connect you with potential sponsors in that same system. So again, we can't guarantee an exact timeline of when we may be able to directly connect you, but we want to get as many people signed up as we can because that gives us a little bit more connection with employers to create those opportunities and try to get you connected with that. So watch for that communication, and if you would, please sign up. It's to your benefit. If we can connect you in, it's all the better. So more information is better. If you're not interested in that option too, all well and good, but we want to try to help alleviate the Title IV dependency for you, and also the potential of gap balances and things like that that you may have to endure. We want to get rid of that as much as possible. So if you can, sign up. We'd love to try to connect you with our sponsors, with our employers, and see if we can't get you both paid for while you're going through school and employment at the back end of that too, so that you get a good head start into your nursing career. So that's kind of the early stuff. I wanted to begin today for everyone who is nationwide and just recognize the fact that while we have a small group here in Baltimore, Maryland, home of Johns Hopkins, we also wanted to recognize all of those who are nationwide. We are from Alaska and Hawaii all the way to Florida and Maine. We are coast to coast everywhere. 861 currently live on the broadcast nationwide. So want to recognize all of you who are tuning in from far distant locations, from your homes, from your work, from wherever you may happen to be at the moment signing in. Thank you for being with us. And I also want to recognize this is an important step for you in your nursing journey, and I honor that. We like to go around and do these new learner welcome forums from different parts of the United States. So you'll find us doing these in Vegas and in Florida and California and Alaska and everywhere across the country. We like to go to different locations because we are nationwide. We don't like to broadcast from a singular space. We like to get out and meet the learners who may not have as many immediate direct touch points with a virtual college. We like to try to get to meet and recognize and honor the journey that you're on wherever you may happen to be. So we are today in Baltimore, Maryland, excited for the learners that have made it here with us. We're going to have a little bit of conversation in the room, but we also want to invite all of you who are remote to also please tune into the chat and continue to chat with us. Brianne in the back of the room is going to help to try to pull in some of those things from the chat to also grab some of your voice so that we can make sure that we honor all of you who are also broadcasting in. To give you a feel of where we are and where we're coming from, I wanted to run through a couple of statistics for this incoming group. So this is a current statistical model for where we are, statistics for spring 2024, for where we are coming from. You can see that there's blue almost everywhere. We have people coming in from all over the country. Obviously, as we started, and as you are aware, we did start in Utah, and so we are headquartered there. And as we started our initial development for the nationwide grouping, you can see we obviously started out west, which shows a higher population out west, but we have rapidly grown, and you can see Pennsylvania is really strong back here in the east, and around the environs in here in New England area, we have a lot more learners who are hearing of Nightingale, seeing the opportunity, and joining us in our learner population. So we're here today honoring our East Coast group and all those who are joining us remotely, but we have learners all over. In fact, we are currently the largest provider of nursing education in the state of Alaska, and providing a lot of education all around. Another thing I wanted to also highlight who you are as a population. Traditionally, when you look at college learners, people have an idea in their head, 18 to 24, single, etc. Maybe have gone to college, maybe not have gone to any college. That's not our population. We recognize that those who are coming to Nightingale have more experience, have other commitments, have a lot of other things that are happening in their lives, and we also want to honor that. The age of our learners, the vast majority, only 8% are in that early college population set that you traditionally view as being the college pop, right? Most of our learners have other life experience, are coming a little later in their career perhaps, or have worked for years in healthcare already and are now just looking for that next level up in their credentialing. Wanted to honor that. Also, racial demographics of our population. We are only 26% white. Now, why that's significant is because the nursing profession has historically and traditionally been predominantly an upper middle class or upper class white women profession. And in fact, the population of nursing in this country is still predominantly white and middle class. I'm not making a negative commentary about white women. I'm obviously a white man. But at the same point, Well, if you look at National Academies of Medicine and a series of other major groups like NLN, National League for Nursing, they talk a lot about the health outcomes that exist are always better when the population providing the care reflects the population receiving the care. Recognizing that America is no longer predominantly white means that if we're going to have better health outcomes and close the healthcare equity gap, we need to have nurses that reflect a diverse experience, that reflect the communities in which they serve. So having a larger population of those who are non-white is a major step forward in supporting the mission of NLN and NAM in helping to overcome health equity gaps that exist in this nation, not just in the profession, but the equity outcome gap in our healthcare system. So we're thrilled to be part of that solution and provide opportunity in that respect as well. You can see a lot of our learners there. If we look at the bottom, are Pell recipient, about 50% of our population, which means that we recognize that there are traditionally some economic factors that create some pinch on a lot of our learners. That creates a lot of other external concerns that mean there's a lot of demands on your time, on your attention, on your finances. That puts a lot of pressure on your ability to do school. We recognize that. And we just want to honor that we recognize that part of that journey as well. And then obviously down there in the income, recognizing that those who earn less than $50,000 a year, which is a kind of a big marker when you look at demographics, is quite a large portion of our population. Those who are earning under the $50,000 mark are about 40% of our learner population. It's a sizable chunk of our learner population. So that's a sizable amount of trust that's being placed in the institution in investing so much in your future. And that means that we have an obligation and responsibility to try to provide you the best possible experience and to try to help support you as you go through this journey. So want to highlight that, recognize that, and honor all those from all your different scenarios and situations generally as you're coming into Nightingale. A few more statistics. First generation, 54% of our population are first generation in their family college learner. That's significant. That has generational impacts if you're able to access and get into the educational system. So we honor that step for you, for your family, for the future of your family. That is a major step. Also, first time full-time. Now, first time full-time means you've had no prior college experience and it's your first time in college. So that's kind of a metric that's used within different reporting things with the federal government, but what really that is only 15% of our population is first time full-time, meaning they've never been to any other institution but Nightingale. This is their first time in a college experience. So what that really tells us is that the vast majority of you have begun an educational journey somewhere else. You have some experience in education, you have some credits perhaps, but may not have finished that journey with another institution. Again, that places a lot of trust and responsibility on us to help you to be successful in completing that journey, because we recognize that other factors may have impeded that in the past. Also, learners with children. Now, why that's important for us is to think there are other commitments in your life. There are other things that are taking your time, your attention. You know, you work most likely to provide for that family, and you're trying to do school on top of that. That's a tough balancing act without children. Add children, it's a much tighter window of opportunity to try to be focused on task in academics, and that also needs to be understood and recognized by us as an institution and try to support you in that same space. So the reason we're providing some of these statistics is to show we recognize a variety of other factors that are part of your story, that are part of your journey, that impact the population and the group that we have coming into this institution, and that we recognize and honor that. And we want to try to provide as much support and as much engagement as we can to help you through that. Just a few more things in here, and this just looks at the demographic breakdown. Suburban, rural, and rural. So kind of looking at that, where are we located in cities, country, towns, suburbia, kind of through that model. Metropolitan takes in the vast majority, so those who are in population centers, 91% of our population are coming from those spaces. That was last year. Again, now we're at 92%. Part of that is also as we continue to expand nationwide, Those opportunities and the marketing that happens within that so that people know about the opportunity typically happen in larger population centers first, and then they spread from there. So a lot of our expansion in this space is happening within cities initially and then going into rural environments. That's not to say that we're neglecting rural spaces. In fact, we have really strong relationships with the National Rural Health Association, and we want to provide people as much understanding and opportunity to also engage within those rural spaces, as that is one of those areas that is most acute in the gap in healthcare access and opportunity. So want to highlight that. Just to give you a feel of where our Nightingale partners are located, I want to make one caveat right now on the map. Just because we have a partner in certain states doesn't necessarily mean we can do current rotations in that state. A few of our partners like DaVita, which does nephrology, they are located nationwide and they have facilities all over the place, which we have access to. But for instance, the state of California, we are currently not authorized to do on-ground field experience in the state. That's a California state law. Because we are an out-of-state school, we're not allowed to do those rotations. And that means that even though we have partners in California, we have to have California learners travel outside of the state in order to complete their DFCs. So just want to point that out and highlight, yes, we have partners virtually everywhere, or at least within a close geographical approximation, but we can't do rotations literally everywhere yet. And this map continually keeps expanding. So we'll keep you posted as we get a little bit more. You can see from where we are in Baltimore today, we have lots and lots of partners right in this little area in Maryland, Pennsylvania, Delaware, etc., right here in this DC corridor, this major metropolitan hub. And we also have a ton here on the East Coast going down into Florida. So predominantly we're going to try to focus, and we'll talk about this a little bit more as we get to the end. We try to focus those DFC rotation clinical experiences as close to you as we can possibly make that, recognizing that for various reasons we may have to travel within a small window, but we try to keep you as close as we possibly can to where you are geographically located, at least in your same region space. All right, that gives you a little bit of a feel for this entering cohort, this entering group who are starting today within the New Learner Welcome Journey. I want to talk about this journey a little bit more now, and I want to ask a couple of questions in here. Those in the chat, please, by all means, participate. Throw your comments here in the chat, but I want to start by asking the why. Why start this journey? All schooling is hard, nursing particularly. Why? What are you hoping to achieve? Why go through this? What is your why? I'll open it up to the room here to see if anyone wants to share. Please.
I wrote something because of my accent, so I decided to write something down. I'm originally from Cameroon, where I was born. I have always been inspired by my father's dreams to enter into healthcare. Now, as a mother of twins, I want to pursue my career as a registered nurse. My primary motivation is to set a strong example to my children, demonstrating the importance of following one's dream and making a positive impact into the world.
Love that. For those of you who are online who may not have heard, from Cameroon, mother of twins, wanting to make a positive difference and to help set that example for children of the positive impact you can make in society and in the world, right? Beautiful, a beautiful why. Other thoughts? Just for those online for notice, I did pre-prep the room that I'd be asking questions, and if they don't want to share, they don't have to. So there's a lot of side-eye going on right now about whether to share or not. It's okay. Brianne, do we have any in the chat? Love the positive.
Children,
Mm-hmm.
if people feel like it's their calling, providing a better future, and keep people say passion. Basically, a lot of family and growth within themselves.
Love that. love that. Setting a positive example for family, making an impact, being able to have a positive impact on your communities as well. That comes up a lot. One that people are usually a little shy to mention, but it comes up quite a bit too, is money. It's fine. That's a motivator, right? It's a fine why. We all need to do a little bit better for our families. There's an economic aspect to this. We get that. It's a perfectly acceptable why as well, is that you want to do a little bit better. And nursing provides a phenomenal economic impact vehicle for people to get a next step up, right? So, no shame. You can say it. Money's a motivator. It's all good. Any other thoughts in the chat, Brianne? Or did you have? Okay. Yeah. One thing we want to kind of focus on here is we're at the start of the journey. I'm going to talk about this journey a little bit more, but the start of this journey, it's really crucial to nail down your why. What is your why? Because let's be very blunt, it's going to be tough. It's going to get hard. We saw from that previous slide when we talked about the demographics, many of you have other commitments. This is not your only gig, right? You've got kids, you've got work, you've got economic factors, you've got family care that may not be children, maybe elder care, maybe you're taking care of your parents, or other things that may be on top of you. It's going to be hard. There may be times where you're tempted to stop, to take a pause, to walk away. Again, there's no shame in that too, but we also want to help you to try to be as successful as possible. And when the going gets tough, remembering why you've elected to do this journey is absolutely crucial to push through those hard times. So we want everyone to take some time and really think. It's the start of your journey today. Why? Write it down. Take a minute to really think through it. It sounds like something an academic would tell you to do, right? Write it down. But I'm going to tell you, it's meaningful. It's truly meaningful to establish your why immediately. Just as our dear learner here from Cameroon wrote it down, this is what it means to me to be here. The impact, the example, the difference, the impact. That's why I'm doing this. Take the time to write down your why. If it's money, no shame, but write it down. Keep that as a goal. If it's the positive impact in your community, write it down. If it's to set an example for others, write it down. It's going to be meaningful to you as you go through this journey. I want to go through this journey a little bit more. I am an academic and I kind of nerd out, so you'll have to forgive me for being a little bit nerdy here. This is just what I do. Joseph Campbell, who was a professor of philosophy, he's now passed. He was very, very influential through the 50s all the way through about the 90s. And he wrote, as a professor of mythology, what he called the hero's journey. Now, the hero's journey can be broken down into common elements basically that exist through all cultures, through all storytelling, that help to define the hero in those journey and how they get to the other end. So it's kind of, these are the common threads and elements that pull out of all cultures, all time periods for how we tell stories and how we create these heroes. Now, his version breaks down into 17 easy steps, which we're going to break down into 3. So you can see in the inner circle there, we have separation, initiation, and return, which encompass those various steps. So I'm going to necessarily compress his research into these smaller steps so that we can just talk about them as a whole rather than going through all the nuance of his academics. Now, when we talk about the hero's journey, you'll recognize these themes in other things in pop culture. So if you watch Harry Potter or Star Wars or Lord of the Rings or any of those epic movie myths, they follow the hero's journey. You'll also find it if you read mythology such as the Greeks, Hercules, Aeschylus, the Odyssey. They follow these different steps. You'll find it in cultures in Asia and in Africa. They all follow these similar different motifs. So let's rock through a few of these. Let's start with separation. Now, separation is the ordinary world. This is your life before today. This is what your life felt like, looked like, experienced, and was. From this space, So Luke on the farm or Frodo in the Shire, right? They're living their normal life. Life is calm. Life is what it is. They hear the call. They have the opportunity to accept or reject that call to adventure. It's usually referred to an adventure in the hero's journey. We're referring to it in this context as the call to nursing. You can choose to accept or reject that call. That's an option. If you reject it, like Frodo, you'd stay in the Shire. Like Luke, you'd stay on the farm, right? There are spaces that you would just continue your ordinary life straight as it was. No shame. It's just not the journey, right? It wasn't the journey. It wasn't the timing for you at that time. The call may come later. That's okay. In this instance, we're going to assume that someone accepts the call. That's the start of this journey for the hero. When that journey is started, there's an opportunity of what they call meeting the mentor. You'll see it oftentimes. Luke meets Obi-Wan or Frodo meets Gandalf, and they start their mentorship relationship, that connection, that coordination that helps to get the basic skills or the basic start to that journey, which helps them to kind of make those first steps. For each of you in that space, there's going to be a mentor. It could be someone you already work with who may be a nurse. It may even be one of our own learner support service strategists. Whoever you choose or whoever is there for you, it's valuable to have somebody who can help you, who can support you, who can guide you. Some of that may even be some of our other learners who are further along in the journey. It may be some of our alumni. There are opportunities to connect with all those different groups, but it is valuable in these early stages where it's the most tempting to stop, to have someone who can help guide you over that initial hurdle, that first journey step. So recognize that's part of this journey. You will always be more successful at the start of a journey if you have a mentor, if you have someone who will help support you. Maybe in your own family, maybe a grandparent or an older member of the family who can simply provide that emotional or caring support or encouragement that helps you to continue on. But it's valuable to consider, who is your mentor? Who can help you? Who is your cheerleader? Who's been there and will help to guide you in these early steps? From there, it's always the case in the hero's journey that once they commit to that journey, aid comes. Now, in some of these mythological versions, there's supernatural aid. There may be, magical tools or things that they get their hands on that are able to give them some supernatural aid. Not all of them. Some of them are just simply they're provided additional support, or they're able to join within a band or a crew that helps to give them that additional support. One way or another, once you commit, there's support. Within our college environment, we have lots of supports. And we just want to highlight and recognize and give a shout out to those like the learner support strategists, like the other support aides, the faculty, mentors. We've got so many people within the college that are here to try to provide that support. Please take advantage. The reason they're here is for you. So if you need and want them, they're here. Please engage. And from there, there's crossing the threshold. That's when the journey, they've found a mentor, they've got some aid, they're ready to get going. Now there's a moment where they actually make the step. For us, that step is actually not today. That step is finally decided next Friday at 5 p.m., the end of the add-drop period. Until then, this is getting your feet wet, this is getting your understanding, this is making the commitment, this is understanding your why, this is you starting to explore. The minute we're done with add-drop, you've accepted that journey. You may be all in today, great. Don't worry about 5 p.m. Friday, but note that 5 p.m. Friday is the day. That's when there's no money exchanged. You have time to make a decision, right? But 5 p.m. Friday, that's when you've committed. And now there's actually some money on the hook, right? So want to make that clear as well. 5 p.m. Friday, make a choice. That's crossing the threshold where your full commitment has been made and you're ready to really continue to roll forward. Again, this early part of the journey is a crucial step. This is finding your why. Why do I take the journey? Why am I making that step? Who's there to help me? What resources are in place? How am I going to make the end? This is the moment of those decisions. And you've got now until next week, Friday, to really try to figure out what is that initiation stage for you. Is this the right time for this journey? If it's not, no shame. Respect that. It may not be the right time, and that's okay. If it is, great. We want to provide all the support, all the help, everything we can to help you be successful on this journey. But once you've crossed that threshold, that's where we get to separation. The second part, the second phase of Campbell's journey structure. And in that, this is leaving the known world. That's what we're doing. Your life, your free time, the things that you had before that are going to change necessarily. That's just kind of the nature of going into school. And with that, that means you've left the known world. What was is no more. You're moving into a different phase of life, a different part of your journey. That means some things are going to have to shift to accommodate this new phase of life. The potential is unknown. What you can achieve, you don't know yet, because you don't know all the challenges you may face and have to overcome. But it also indicates that you're willing to grow. I'll put it very succinctly. There's no comfort in the growth zone, and there's no growth in the comfort zone. If you're going to grow, it will necessarily involve some discomfort. So be prepared. That is part of the growth journey. It is necessary for all life to face opposition, to continue to grow. It will happen as you go on this journey. In this space, in the time of separation, what they call the separation phase. And I'm going to refer to this phase as the time in nursing school. During this phase, this is what we would call, the trials of Hercules and, the struggles that Luke goes through as he figures out who he is. There's a road that they go through as journey. Frodo struggling through all the different challenges he has. That's all part of this separation phase. There's trials, there's struggles, there's temptations to turn back, there's reasons to give up. There are other opportunities. I just want this to end so I can go back to my comfortable shire, right? There are lots of different things that will come up in this time that will make you perhaps doubt why, which is also why you should know your why. Because this is the time that will challenge you. This is the time that will make that why be more meaningful as you continue to push through trials. Now, during these times when they talk about road trials, in mythology, of course, it goes through various different kinds of trials. Themes of love, power, even life and death. You may lose people on this journey. Family may pass unexpectedly. You may have others that you care for, if you're already in the healthcare profession, that you may lose under your care. There may be others, friends or others, who decide you're not there enough and they're moving into other spaces at this point. People will come and go on this journey. You'll make new friends, but you may lose people as well. That challenge can be significant. Recognize that may come. The next part of this is also you may achieve your journey goal and you may not wish to return to your normal life. So part of the separation phase here, right? You've heard the call, you've gone on this epic journey, you've had all these trials that you've overcome. At the end of it, you're now Frodo returning to the Shire. I think one of the best things we ever got from Peter Jackson in giving us the hero's journey was the 45 minutes after when we see them go back to their normal lives and realize there's something else out there for me. The journey changes them. Often films will end right at the end of that separation phase when they've overcome the challenge. Now what? That's not the end. In fact, there's a whole nother phase of this journey that's crucial. In fact, probably more impactful. And that is this return part. Once you complete your degree, yay, you've overcome the challenge. Now what? What have you learned? What have you gained? Who have you become? What's changed? Who do you want to become now based on what you've learned from that? And this return phase is absolutely essential to defining the rest of your life, because you'll start other journeys. What you take away from this journey will impact all other journeys. So consider in that. What wisdom have you gained from your time here? Think about that as you're going on the journey. What am I learning? What am I gaining? What are these challenges training me for that I can also help give back, that I can also help to contribute? As many said within the chat and also here, the idea of I want to be an example to my children and set that positive impact in the world. What are those lessons you want to pass on? What do you want them to gain from your journey? And how can you share that? That's a crucial part of this. There's also learning to find balance again. Let's be honest, education is very unbalancing. The amount of time, the effort, the adjustment we make during this educational experience, once that time comes back at the other end, where's the balance? What do you want to do? How do you want to now spend that time in meaningful ways? And also, this is really, the journey is impactful, the journey is significant, but where the hero is transformed is not in the challenge. It's not in the separation phase. It's not during school, per se. It's after. That's when you've changed. Right now, it's struggle. And I mean that kindly. I'm not trying to scare people off, but it's a struggle. It's hard. It's challenging. This is the growth period. What we get from that is going to depend on what we choose after as well. That's when the journey becomes part of the hero. That's when Frodo became a totally new individual. That's when Luke became the master. That's when, etc. We can go through these different things. Hercules became the demigod that he was to become, right? All of these different myths have their own endpoint, but it's at the end of that struggle period that they become something new, who they've chosen to become from that journey. So consider this as we go through this journey. You're starting out today. This is the time where you're hearing the call, right? This is the initiation stage. We're finding our mentors. We're finding our footing. We're establishing our why. We're making sure that we're ready to go on this journey. Once we've done that, we go through some struggle. Again, I'm not trying to be abnormally morose about the struggle, but it is hard. It is incredibly hard. That's just education. Every educational journey is a challenge. Who you will become ultimately from this experience will depend upon you and the lessons you choose to take away. The one thing that I've always said, and I believe this deeply within my core, I've been to lots of different schooling experience. You heard at the beginning, I've got a big CV. It doesn't matter. I honestly believe any school I would have gone to depended on what I wanted to take out of it. I've met people from the Ivy League who are as dumb as bricks, respectfully. I've met people from private schools or from community colleges who were geniuses. What happened was they took that educational experience for everything they could get out of it, and they incorporated it into their soul. I don't think it matters where you go. It's who you are and what you take away. So, again, as we think about the journey here, ultimately what it'll be for you is what you choose to make it. How you choose to use the professors, the materials, the experiences, the engagements to become the best version of yourself. I believe that with all of my education that I've had. Some of the schools were better for me because I chose to be better in them. Some of them were not as impactful, but that was on me, not the institution. And I can say that bluntly. They were all great schools, but I can't say that I was my best version in each of those experiences. And I recognize that now. Within that, we've mentioned this a few times. You've heard the call, right? We're in this early stage. You have 12 days to commit. Really, that's next Friday. It's next Friday at 5 p.m. Gives you the opportunity to make that. And again, I'm reiterating that because, again, this is a no-cost space. You have 2 weeks. After that 2-week period, money hits the table. If you're on federal loans or things like that, it's important to know that because that could impact future educational experiences if you choose to go on in another space. Again, if you choose to do your journey elsewhere, that's a choice. I respect that. But I want to make sure you're aware of impacts. So that's why I'm highlighting this, be aware. The other part of that is please take the time to really think about your why. Don't brush past it. It's really genuinely important for you to really consider why. What do I want? How do I want it to be? And to really focus on that so that the separation is not going to deter you. You're not going to fall off your journey because it gets hard. And that why will also help to drive you in considering the lessons that you will ultimately take away when you come back to what we'll call normal life on the other end of this journey, right? Who you ultimately become also depends on what you put in, and what you put in depends on the why that you're trying to get in the journey. So please take the time to figure out your why, and I would also encourage you, share your why. Share it with your LSS strategist when you have your conversation with them. Share it with your family and friends, your mentor, so that they can help remind you when the going gets tough, when things get super hard, when you're frustrated, when you want to tear your hair out, when you're screaming at the kids because you just need 20 more minutes to get this assignment done, and they're still yelling at you and you can't figure out why. Figure out what your why is. Share it so that those who you love and are around you and support you can help remind you and give you that encouragement to keep going. All right. Another part of this that I also want to highlight, and yes, there are more questions, so I'm sorry, I do a lot of talking. I'm an academic. I will fill like a gas the space that I'm provided, so I apologize. I will always talk. Another component to this is also the holistic journey. So the person going on this journey is a whole person, right? You're not coming here as a brain to be filled. We've gotten rid of the John Lockean blank slate mentality a long time ago. It's not tabula rasa. You all come with past experience. Many of you have been in healthcare for years already, doing amazing good work with individuals. You're not novice, right? Many of you are coming very, very skilled and ready for this journey. But you're also coming as a whole individual, and there may be spaces you may want to consider as you start this journey as well. So this is just a helpful tool. It's called the 8 Dimensions of Wellness, obviously. And in this, there are 8 different segments of who you are as an individual: financial, environmental, intellectual, physical, occupational, spiritual, social, financial, emotional. And in those different environments are different aspects of who you are as a person. Now, a holistic person gets strained on occasion with one or more of these aspects. So we mentioned earlier on that there are some financial constraints that many people are currently working under. That financial dimension of wellness may tug a little heavier at various moments. That tug, when it tugs, can sometimes create other imbalances in your holistic circles, because you so have to focus there for the moment, necessarily, that you may be neglecting other spaces, because that one needs some real attention. Or because we're so focused here on the intellectual, building your skills and capacities in there, it may tug, and you may necessarily be a little bit shy on the social side of things, right? Those things happen. But we recognize that all of you are holistic individuals who are coming into this space. And we want to try to help support you in finding places of balance. So looking at these 8 dimensions in here, this is not a question I want people to answer directly and in the open, right? I want you just to really consider for yourselves, thinking about these dimensions. Where do you see balance now? Where do you see opportunities? Where we may need to adjust and balance to create some balance within our circles? What might you need to do to overcome some of the challenges that might be tugging some of these circles a little bit more, that are creating some imbalance? Where can you find support? And why would we spend time talking about this in the Welcome Forum? I'll come back to that question in just a second. When thinking about where can you find support, please reach out. Our LSS strategists are willing and able to try to find some support mechanisms and help you to identify other resources that may be beyond what you've already attempted, to try to help you to find support and balance in some of these spaces. Some of what we talked about at the top of the hour as well with like sponsorship programs, we're trying to find ways that we can also try to create a little more balance. If you're not so stressed about this thing, maybe it'll help to create a little bit more holistic balance in your other spaces. Because as much as we're focused on the intellectual in this space, a holistic person is here. And if those other spaces are so tugged, you can't invest here, right? I mean, we're talking about this. These are always in play for our time and attention. If you're so worried about financial or social, you may not always have the time and the energy to focus on your intellectual. So we need to help try to find balance in these spaces so that we can focus in all areas holistically. We're all the products of all the things that pull off on us. So I wanted to ask the question, why do we spend so much time talking about this in the Welcome Forum? Because we've now spent about 5-10 minutes talking about 8 dimensions of wellness. Why do you think we do that? And this one is a real question.
You're putting an awareness for us to look at why we're in this school.
Sorry, a little louder.
I said you're putting an awareness. Well, the reason why we're here.
Right. Love that. The reason why we're here, right? We're trying to continue to expand in these spaces, in these ways, and we need to be able to find that balanced space. Any thoughts or questions on the 8 dimensions? And I'll ask that, of course, in the chat as well. If there's anything coming up in the chat, Brianne.
We have about a 7 to 10 second delay, so.
Okay. That's okay. I'm a teacher. Delays allow pause for cognition.
To know where we can grow and improve, because we have mentally okay to be successful, learner comprehension, good perspective to have, mental health is important, to find balance, and just continues.
Yeah. One thing I'll make a note on that. Mental health is important. I'm so glad that came up. We have a mental health crisis in this country. We are very unbalanced in America. And I mean that with love and respect as an American. But we are an unbalanced country and culture. We focus on certain pieces of the dimensions, but we do not highlight all of them. And it's very easy in our culture and society to become overly dependent on certain pieces of this. It's very valuable to consider, what does balance look like for you? Not the messages culture tells us, but what does balance look like for you? What does it feel like for you? Where are those spaces where you don't feel balanced? And what can we do to create that again? Holistic individuals are able to provide better care. Holistic individuals are able to learn more effectively. Holistic individuals are able to make better impacts on others. So when we talk about the why as well, you are as important as what you give. Nurses are notorious for giving beyond the stretched marks of what they can provide. Throw yourself under the bus to provide for your patients, for your clients, for your other nurses on a floor. That happens all the time. That's an admirable quality in nurses. However, you are also important, and we need to be able to find balance. I would encourage you to consider, as part of your why, where can I find balance in this journey so that I can take that back into the world when I'm also now practicing as an RN as well? How can I be an example of balance as a holistic individual for my friends, my family, for my communities, and my clients? Consider that as also a part that you may consider as part of your journey. Another portion here that I wanted to go through or just highlight in here is our value statement as an institution. In the value statement, it's called evolvitude. It's an attitude of evolvement or development. It's a developmental model. And within that, there are certain components of it. One is, the first portion is I choose. I choose are things that many of us would consider core values. It's grounded, I choose deliberate involvement grounded in love, trust, forgiveness, courage, kindness, humility, gratitude, and lightheartedness. Now, we'll run through these other portions, but I want to ask. Many people refer to those as core values. If they are core values or things that we consider central to who we are, why would we put I choose in front of those values? This is also a real question. If these are things that we think are central tenets that many of us believe in, or many of us would hope to be part of who we are, why would we put I choose? What was that?
Probably reminds a constant reminder.
A mindset. Yeah. How many of us every day come in with perfect humility? Or kindness? Or trust in others? It's hard. It's real hard. We all like to believe that we have all these things and they are core to who we are. It is just how I present, it's who I am. Yes, and. Some days we're better at it than others. And that's why we have in our statement, I choose. Because we have elected in our community in Nightingale to choose every day to try to be better at incorporating these into how we actually present with the whole world. I choose deliberate involvement, grounded in love, trust, forgiveness, courage, kindness, humility, gratitude, and lightheartedness. These are things I'm choosing every day to try to live and to try to bring into this community. This is part of our community of what we try to build at Nightingale. We want to make you aware of that as we're starting the journey as well. Not everyone's going to have it every day. Not everyone's perfect at it every day, but we're choosing this. This is part of what we want to see in our community. The second part of this is I strive for self-governing, self-actualizing, and self-transcending. And again, we put this in our values statement for a couple of different kinds of reasons, but we just want to focus on the one portion in the middle, self-governing. What does it mean to self-govern? What does it mean to self-govern?
Have some rules to go by. To have some rules to go by.
Yeah, very much so. Love that. Other thoughts too? Self-govern. Very much true.
I guess having a character. Having a character.
Yeah. Part of our character in that same space. Yeah, a lot of self-governance comes in with the idea that we have power and control. There are a lot of things that we don't control, and there are some things that we control. Most of the things we don't control impact us. The things that we can control are a lot of what we do. It's our reactions, it's how we choose to present, it's how we choose to take the response or the stimulus that we're getting from somewhere else and how we choose to deal with it. So we believe in self-governance. So we don't usually do, this happened to me or you did this to me as part of our community. It's no, this happened and this was the result to me. Here's how I'm wanting to work through it. It's taking responsibility for what we can control and recognizing that there are some things we can't. But the things that we can control, we choose to control. And again, most of that comes down to self. I control me and very little else. That is the reality. Also in the same space, and this one's pretty significant too, this is I act. We choose all those other values, right? The courage, the kindness, we choose those every day. I act, my external presentations of those things include these four elements. So that is growth mindset, constant development, constantly becoming better, transparency, responsibility, while also building community. Regardless of where everyone else is coming from, regardless of what they look like, regardless of their past affiliations, we're building community. We're all part of this community, we're all supporting one another in this community, and we're all helping each other to become the best versions of ourselves. Whatever that looks like for you, right? I'm not dictating what you have to look like, but whatever the best version of you looks like for you, we're here supporting that. And we're here supporting everyone else on their own journey of becoming their best selves. So I'll ask a quick question on that, particularly within our current environment. What is your role, and again it's written in my role, in building community? What part do you play in that process of helping Nightingale to build community? Also a real question. And I'll ask Brianne in the chat as well.
Being trustworthy, supporting each other. Someone says you can't have fun without fundamentals. Participation, helping others, choosing to be better, not bitter. Supporting community, a lot of communications, honesty, teamwork, and adding value.
Good. I'd say a big portion of this is also respect. Respect for one another, respect for perspectives, respect for where anyone is on their journey. Again, it's an important thing to always remind ourselves we're all at different places on our journey. All of us can learn from each other, because we've all had different experiences that are meaningful to our journey. So it's the thing, regardless of how many credentials you get, how many letters you put behind your name, which is a big thing in nursing, to get as many of those alphabet soups you can attach to your name, that's great. But if you ever get to the point where you feel like you can't learn from the person in front of you, you have failed. That is my personal philosophy. Every single person can teach me something that I do not know. And they are the expert in that thing that I do not know. So I can learn from literally everyone. And I should approach all of my interactions with that level of engagement and willingness to engage. The respect that they bring. So consider that as you go through your journey too. There will be times where it's challenging, where people may say things we don't like, where there are interactions with each other that are not optimal. Again, we're all choosing imperfectly at times to be our best selves. But what can I do to help build that community? How can I respect where they are, even if it's not their best day, and help them on their journey to the next phase? All right, your journey begins now, right? Heed the call or not, that's your choice. We're in that initiation stage. You have until 5:01, that's the final turnoff because it's 5 o'clock, to make sure that you tell us by next week, Friday, if this is the time for you. That's fine. Total respect for you. If now's not the time, it's okay. If now's the time, great, we're behind you. But we want you to make sure that you've made the choice. Your journey is ready to begin, and you're ready to start those struggles on that journey to get to the next phase of your space. Again, figure out your why. Take that time to really think through your why. It really is crucial. It's not just an academic step. It is so important. It does become very challenging. Knowing your why will drive you in meaningful ways when things get tough. I would encourage you to share it with your LSS counselor. That's your learner success strategist. Because they are going to help, again, they're kind of your partner through the entire journey. You may see faculty in more places than one through your journey, but your strategist is going to be with you from today clear to your graduation. So I'd encourage you to make a connection, to find a relationship with them, to share your why, and allow them to help support you. and remind you at times, perhaps, even of what that why is as you go through your journey. Just, again, to be your help, part of that support circle, part of your mentorship in going through these hard times. I would take an inventory of your 8 dimensions. How balanced are you? Where might you find balance? What does it look like for you to be balanced? And what do you need to help support what balance is? And then I would also commit to our evolvitude statement, our value statement. As a community, that's what we're seeking. That we act, that we choose, and that we strive within those value sets to help become the best versions of ourselves, to continually develop who we are as individuals. And once you cross that threshold and decide to take the journey, your potential is unlimited. We don't know what it is. You could be anything you want to be. And we just hope that we can support you in that journey in becoming whatever it is that you hope to become. With that then, that takes us through the early orientation component. We're now actually through the major component of that. One other thing is I also wanted to give you a little bit of an overview, and everyone who's online as well, a little bit of an overview of how we do things here at Nightingale, curriculum, some of our terms. It's a little different than you may have seen in other spaces. And I just wanted to spend a minute, had some good conversations with our Director of Nursing also to get some clarity on a few things, just to make sure I'm able to provide you guys a little bit of context. There's always a lot of questions day one. I get that. Making that decision to cross the threshold, a lot of unknowns. Just want to make sure that we're kind of thinking around the same bubble, and then I want to answer some questions that may come up from it. So, if you'll indulge me, we'll try to go through this as swiftly as we can, and then we can dive into some Q&A if there are some additional questions that you have. All right, so looking at our curriculum, we are a concept-based nursing curriculum. So there are some curriculums that are designed on pathologies. So it's designed, I need you to know everything and all the complications that can exist with diabetes and all the different concepts that exist in there. That's not how we're designed. Ours is concept-based. So concepts that exist inside of diabetes will be discussed. But those concepts also transmute and move through other pathologies. So we're going to teach you perfusion, and then we're going to show you how that works in a variety of different contexts, so that it also builds your thinking capacity on the other end of that, so that you can apply it to novel situations, right? Nurse reasoning skills is all about being able to apply those skills in different spaces. If we teach you just the pathologies, the ability to apply that in different settings is strained. It's harder to make that transition. So we're trying to teach you the concepts, the big ideas, and show you examples of how that plays, so that when you encounter novel situations, you can process through that meaningfully. So we are concept-based. This is based on the research from Gibbons. If you want to look up that, it's concept-based education for nursing. It's threaded throughout the curriculum. It also means that when you see a concept like perfusion, you're going to see that early and often, right? You'll get that in your early fundamentals class. You'll see it in multiple classes over time. So it helps to reiterate and solidify that understanding multiple touch points. So if you see it in one class and you just get this little snippet, don't worry. It's not the only time you're going to see that. You're going to see it multiple times. So make sure you get that piece, because we're going to build on it later on. So all those little building blocks we need to get early and often so that you can be as successful as possible. Now again, they're repeated, they're customized within the course specific content, they all play to your programmatic outcomes. Just note that you're getting them in segments that are going to help build throughout the curriculum. Also, the remote skills acquisition model, there was a question about this a little earlier too. We allow for access in any setting. This is one of the draws I think that help people in Nightingale, is that you're able to work from almost anywhere. Part of that means that 50% of your remote skills are done wherever you are. So instead of doing all clinical, where we just put you in a clinical space and you're there all the time, to help save you some time, money, energy, etc., up to 50% of what would traditionally be straight clinical time is done in what's called remote skills acquisition, which means that instead of having your normal labs with the huge mannequins and the $1 million facilities that you're physically in for hours at a time, watching one person do it, waiting for your turn to get to the mannequin, we send you a box of kit. That kit gives you mannequins, tools, blood packets, bandages, whatever you need to do your skills for that particular lesson. You'll also receive an Oculus headset. This is for virtual reality, so that you can work with virtual simulated mannequins wherever you are. And that allows you some of that clinical space. One of the great things about VR is that your brain has a hard time distinguishing virtual from real. So in those environments, it does translate and code as experience. What's great about that is that we can provide you a lot of experiences that we can't guarantee when you go to a clinical space, because clinical spaces only have what's presented that day. So this helps to provide you a broader context of different experiences that we know are replicable, meaning you can repeat them as many times as you want, but they're also consistent. So we know that everybody through Nightingale has had an opportunity to see that kind of a presentation on a client in their nursing experience. So about 50% of that clinical time is spent in a virtual simulated environment, and that again is through virtual simulations, those mannequins, those other pieces. You'll also do your skills videos. That allows you to do, show like head-to-toe health assessment on an individual. You'll video record those. You'll send those in for evaluation. You'll get information back and evaluation. And then when you go to your clinical site, there will be a skills pass-off just to double check before you walk into a client space. So you'll have multiple touch points in your skill development in that space. Please recognize that even though we're doing it through a video or something like that, it's crucial to take the time for you to try to get those skills as cleanly as you can, because that's, again, we're just going to do a check-off when we get to the clinical space before you go into a client space. So we want to make sure you're taking all of these simulated or remote skills acquisition spaces very seriously. You're going to get a lot from them if you choose. Please.
There's a learner asking, when do the skill kits get sent out?
Awesome. So they get sent out at the beginning of the semester that you have a clinical environment. I believe they're sent at the end of add drop every semester. That way we know that you're in that class. And then the kits get sent to you with everything that you need for that semester. So if you don't have it now, it's by design. You're okay. No puppies have been harmed. You're doing great. So at the end of add drop, once we know everything's kind of panned out, again, every semester, we know where you're at and we know which classes you're in. Those kits get sent to you, so you have them with everything that you need. So do not worry. They are on their way. Come on. Come on. You can do it. Okay. Lots of verbiage. I'll explain it very simply. These are all the technical definitions, and you're welcome to read. But there are 4 major breakouts for what we call experiential learning within our environment. So that's why I'm going to walk through them, because you'll hear the acronyms and you may not hear them fully said, right? So we have first VCBC. That's a virtual case-based client. So these are some of your simulations, right? They're high fidelity sims, and this is where you're going to meet some of those virtual clients that have the presentations that we can ensure are replicable, right? It's called the VCBC. That's the acronym for it. It's just your simulated person, okay? So within that space, you will do your virtual case-based client. You'll go through all the experiences. You could repeat those as you see fit, as you need, as you want to ensure that you have competency and confidence working with that kind of client. There's also a debrief that happens. These are synchronous sessions that are VCBC debriefs. Those are self-scheduled, so you can blend those into your environment as you need. I would encourage you, as you're thinking through what that will look like, consider your work schedule, consider what your kids may need, figure out a time that is meaningful so that you can stick to that time. You don't want to run the risk of missing and rescheduling, and then a certain number of misses means that you failed the opportunity. And that can have really detrimental effects to your progress in the course. So I want to be very blunt about that. Be very cautious when you're scheduling those, but they are meaningful and you get to schedule the time that works. So hop in early, figure what that's going to look like for you. We'll get those in. After that, we get into direct focused care. Direct focused care is where you're actually in the physical environment, okay? That's traditional clinical rotation. In a space, we call it experiential learning direct focused care. Now in that, we have tried as much as we possibly can to get that into a space so it's very condensed. So you do one intensive. Now, there are some opportunities for some of you who live in spaces that are very, very close to DFCs, where you may be scheduled for what we call a disaggregated DFC. What that means is that you may only go once in 1 week, once in another week, once in another week, and once in another week, meaning we spread it over 4 weeks or over the course of a period of time. That way it's very easy, close. Again, that all entirely depends on the clinical rotational space available as close in a geographical area as we have. Most of you will be in what we've put into the admissions process, and what you've heard is a remote travel environment where everybody is in a travel. Now again, even though you're in remote travel, if we have the opportunity to get you in a disaggregated space where we can spread it out, we'll talk to you about that, and we'll try to coordinate with you to make that happen. If we don't have that, it's okay. We have that so that you have 2 days, 1 day off, and 2 days on. So you have 1 week of travel in the semester that you have that. So you may only have to be out for 1 week in the semester. The hope in there is to try to save you a little time and money, to condense that so that the inconvenience to your regular life is really reduced, and you do your travel 1 week and you're done. So you'd have one of those per semester for each of your clinical courses, and you're done. Does that make sense, kind of where we're going in that? Okay. So again, you may need to travel for those. Again, it'll all depend on clinical space and rotational space in your area. We try as hard as we can to keep you within a geographical boundary so that it is as minimal an inconvenience as possible. There are some exceptions to that for those like in California who are on the broadcast. California does not allow us to do rotations on ground in California, and so all California learners must travel. That is just a requirement of California state law right now. We have some things in legislation. If you want to be part of that effort, there are opportunities. You can talk to your strategist, but we are encouraging the legislature to change the law so that we can do on ground. And there are efforts underway to help with that. Again, if you want to be involved as a California learner in helping with that, connect with your strategist. Right now there is a bill currently going through the House and the Senate. It's now in appropriations, trying to get that through. But it's a lot of talk. I'm sorry, we just have a large group, and a lot are in California too, so I need to recognize that. But the direct focus care, again, it's clinical rotation. We're going to try to be as non-disruptive as we can, but recognize that nationwide program, lots of clinical partners, lots of space. Again, we'll be as kind as we can in coordinating those. Just recognize the complexity involved. We also have AFEs. This is an opportunity for you to apply your nurse reasoning skills in a non-clinical space. So this is a field experience which you can do in your own community that is non-patient care, but using your nurse clinical reasoning skills. So there are lots of different examples of this. You'll see it in your course. Just wanted to recognize 2 components. You get to decide when and how you do it. It's a project, so you can blend that into your life, in your home environment, and it is non-client facing, meaning you're not actually doing nurse care, right? It's not physical, hands-on nurse practice, but it is applying your nurse reasoning. So it's the skills that you've learned, the knowledge that you've learned in a non-clinical environment. So there are lots of reasons why we do this. It gets into community health, it gets into how you apply. You're a nurse everywhere. So your nurse reasoning skills can apply in a broad range. And we also want to help people to recognize that as well. It also helps when you think about how the healthcare environment exists today is not what it will look like tomorrow. And all of you entering the profession will be part of how that shapes. So we want to also provide opportunities to see the larger world where nurses can have greater impact and what you can do in that space. So recognize there's a lot more information that you'll see in courses that have an AFE component, but it's an applied field experience. So again, acronyms, we got a lot of them, trying to help clarify a few. And then down at the bottom is the integrated practicum. That is the end of your program, the IP. It is where you are essentially practicing on a one-to-one mentorship under supervision, getting additional clinical hours at the end of your program. So you won't see this until the very end of your program. It ends up being close to about a month of time that you're spending in a one-to-one relationship supervisory in doing nurse clinical work. It's pretty common across the board. Again, we'll coordinate with you on what that looks and feels like. Just recognize that that is part of the program and that's necessary for nearly every state. All right, a couple of things to clarify in here, and this gets into questions that always arise. DFC rotations. Obviously, it's the most disruptive part of the program because it requires you to be physically on ground in a physical space doing things, and so it has the potential to cause the most disruption. There are lots of things that go into figuring out how we end up giving you clinical rotational space. So part of this is to give you a feel for the complexity of it, but also please have kindness with our scheduling team. I know that sometimes when you see some of the rotations, you may say, well, I want it a different week. I'd love it to fit into my life in this certain way. It's a very complex Rubik's Cube of information that we are doing that's fighting back. So recognize how complex it is, and please approach any of your scheduling questions with kindness to that team that is trying their best to support you. Lots of things go into it. Credentialing is a major part of it. So depending on where you're credentialed or how you're credentialed may impact where you're able to be placed. Every state has its own requirements. For instance, we've talked a little bit about California. You will be required to travel in California, outside of the state of California, and hopefully you remember how that was arranged. Within that, wherever you're going has different credentialing requirements and different site orientation requirements. So you'll need to meet both of those requirements. Some states have individual compacts where your license means that you're able to go into other spaces and do those clinical rotations. Some states don't. So you may not be able to travel to every state depending on where you're coming from and depending on the license we're able to work with. Also, the training and orientation of different facilities. Obviously, those of you who've worked in healthcare for a while know that if you're working in a long-term care or a hospital setting, very, very different orientations. Or if you're working in an LTAC or a nephrology center, wherever that happens to be, they're all very, very different in what they need to orient you to and what they're required to orient you to. And depending on the site requirements and the orientations they have, that may also impact your placement. In addition, faculty and learner coordination. So you may want a particular week, but we may not have facility space that particular week. Or we may not have, since many of our faculty travel to accommodate those DFCs, and our rotations typically include about 8 learners coming together, it may be that that rotation isn't possible because we're unable to coordinate the schedules of multiple learners to come into that space to work with a faculty in a particular facility. So just recognize, again, massive Rubik's Cube, fighting back nationwide with lots of different components. We're doing our best to help support you through that, but please approach any of your questions around DFCs with that team with kindness. They really do want to support you. They are incredibly kind and flexible, but it is incredibly complex and may not always, when you see rotations happening, may not always be as clear why certain rotations happened, but there's always reasons. Please be kind. Please.
There's a lot of hearsay going along in the chat.
Okay.
A lot of them saying that they've heard that learners have traveled to the clinical sites and gotten to the location and it got canceled. Will you just clarify on the reasons it would be canceled once students have arrived?
Yep.
And is there anything that we can do for these type of inconveniences?
Yeah, no, it's a great thought, great question. So there are times when they may be closed, right? We have them scheduled, we're all coordinated to go, we send everyone out there and we're ready to go, and then something happens and we can't go into a site. We are guests within these facilities, and those facilities get to determine whether we get to be there or not. There are many, many reasons why it may be closed, increasingly so since COVID. So we have gone into facilities or sent learners to a facility site. The facility site may have an outbreak of COVID and said, I'm sorry, we can't accept anyone from the outside. We can't control that as much as we would love to. So we have had sometimes those have been canceled. However, we have worked with learners to get them alternate placements within that geographical area with other partners that we have so that we can still make that meaningful and get people the clinical hours that they need. So there may be adjustments that happen on the fly. Again, those are almost always related to the partners making choices. So recognize, again, as guests of those facilities, that we don't operate or own any of these clinical facilities. We are partners, we are guests, we are friends with them. But things happen in their own facilities and they have to do what they feel is best in their own patient care at various moments, and that may include saying no to any particular rotation at the last minute. Again, we'll figure out a way to make that meaningful for you, to adjust, to coordinate, so that we keep you in a meaningful space. But it's never an arbitrary, nope, just kidding, within the learner pop. Anything else, Brianne?
No.
All right. So a couple other things in here. Again, as part of a way to help support our scheduling team and helping you get the best experience possible, we do have a schedule variance form. What that is if you already have a major series of commitments, right? You have something that has been on the books for a while, or you're pregnant, you're going to give birth. Like, maybe we should know about that before we schedule you for a clinical, right? That way we're not on top of a due date trying to send you to a facility where obviously you will not be able to complete a TFC. Those kinds of things. If you know of something that's already coming up, maybe you have a scheduled knee surgery and you already know you're going to be out and you can't do a regular rotation, it's okay, let us know. The schedule variance form gives us time in advance of the semester for scheduling so that they can try to coordinate with those and figure out, again, more of this Rubik's Cube. How can we make sure we get you into your clinicals in the best way possible so that we don't end up creating problems with your other commitments that you may have, okay? So it just provides more information for us to do best work that we can try to provide for you. So if you have those things, use the schedule variance form. Just gives us more information to work with and to support you. Again, some other questions in here. What happens if I'm studying maternity but my placement is in a long-term care setting? Great question. One of the things I'll also point out again is we are also concept-based nursing. So part of that is that it's not the only time or the first time that you're going to see those concepts. And the rotational spaces, again, are about providing you as many opportunities across the spectrum. So given some of those rubrics, you may be looking at a long-term care facility, you may be in a hospital setting, you may be studying other concepts, but there are always ways to apply those concepts in any of these settings that we work within. And there are ways that you can work with your faculty in finding the best ways to apply concepts in every setting. So please recognize those opportunities and work with your faculty. If you have any questions or concerns around what it is that you're learning and where you're going to your care facilities. Also, what happens if you miss a rotation? Well, it's a great question. It depends on why. There are some emergencies while you may be stepping away, which we can provide some grace and help and support in rescheduling. If you just decide you didn't really like that clinical rotation space and didn't want to go, that's a different conversation. And that actually is much more challenging for us to adjust with and try to support because of all the complications in even getting the first placement and then trying to adjust to some of those challenges. It may have detrimental impacts. So I would encourage everyone, do your best to make it to all your clinical things. Emergencies do arise, not saying they can't, right? We're on this journey and challenges arise, but be very forthcoming. If something comes up, reach out in advance. Let them know why or what's happening as much as you possibly can so that we can help support making adjustments for you, okay? If you don't communicate with us and just miss, that's a harder thing for us to adjust to and help support. We don't know why, we don't have rationale, and it may end up being considered a full-on miss. And those full-on misses, you only have so many that you can do before you're unable to continue in the program. So please be cautious, provide lots of information, provide input, help support in that space. Also, your expectations for what you need to do in those DFCs, those are going to be posted in your courses. Don't worry about it. You'll see those. There's a lot more information around that. I also wanted to point out a couple more acronyms you're going to see in here. They're important just for you to understand kind of what they are and why they're there. One is NCLEX RN. Of course, that's your licensure exam at the end of this journey. You've all seen, probably many of you who have been in healthcare, NCLEX of some variety or another. NCLEX RN is just the nursing one. And it is looking at your didactic thinking and the academic application of that knowledge. So it isn't a practice readiness exam. Never has been. It's looking at your nurse reasoning and your clinical thinking skills. But it is crucial that you have that to go into nursing, and we still support very much what NCLEX is as a transition to practice exam. To help with that, we have what are called HESI exams within the program. Those are predictor exams. So those are designed to test how ready you are to take the NCLEX. They're challenging. They're not necessarily fun. I get that. Assessment is usually not fun. The benchmark for those is technically 900. The benchmark for that also tries to indicate that at a 900, you're 97% likely to pass the NCLEX on a first attempt. That's great if you can get to that level. We have a slightly lower benchmark that we use for progression to support learners, because again, we're concept-based and we trust that we're getting more and more as we go along, but we still need to be within a window. So our benchmark is about 50 points less at 850 for no concern, continue to progress. Between 800 and 850, we do more remediation and support. When you get below 800, there may be some gaps. And so we may not allow progression below 800. So recognize that there's part that goes into that. There will be a lot more information around that. Just know what the concepts are within here, okay? Your HESIs are intended to provide you a knowledge base for the NCLEX so that you know where you are. There are tools within there that provide remediation. If you go into HESI Compass, it'll show you exactly where there may be some gaps in understanding based on the exam that you can also focus on to build those skills up, and we'll work within those. And then there's also clinical practice. So we've got the NCLEX, that's your transition to practice, that's knowledge-based, but then there's your clinical readiness and clinical practice readiness. So there are client-centered care and the application of skills in a clinical setting. And we have all of our experiential learning activities that are designed to help provide practice readiness. So that's the division, right? You've got your HESI and that, which is your knowledge and your content knowledge. That's NCLEX. And then we have experiential learning, which includes the VCBCs, the AFEs, the IPs, and the DFCs. So I'm using all those acronyms now because we've already introduced them, hoping we all remember what they are. You had a question?
So the HESI, is it taken once at the end of the program?
No. Your HESIs are designed within the program, so there are multiple HESIs that you'll take throughout the program, and that's to provide you benchmark knowledge of where you are as we go through the journey to help continue to prepare and give you that feedback. And again, supporting you through those HESIs with the remediations. We have NCLEX coaches that will work with you with what you've got in your HESI Compass. Please use them. They are available to you. If you find things within your HESI Compass that you need a little skill build up, they're there for you. We have sessions prepared. They want you to be successful. So the HESI is there. There's the HESI Compass, which is just basically because it is a nationally normed exam. They have study guides and assisted components that you can use to help build up skills where there may be a gap. And then there are the NCLEX coaches we have internally to help also build up those skills. Yeah, please.
Is it proctor? Okay, well, it's proctor here said that.
Yeah. So there are benchmarks. HESI exams within the individual courses can be taken twice in a course. So you have one and you don't score quite where you need to be, it's okay. Look at your HESI Compass, do some remediation, get yourself prepped up in some of those weak spaces, take it again, right? So it's not a hard, fast, done, you're out. 2 times each individual course. So help provide a little bit of support there. 2 additional components that the Director of Nursing wanted me to just touch on as we're going through here, as you're getting started in this journey. One is professional comportment and the other is ethical behavior. So recognizing professional comportment is just your behavior, comportment is how you present yourself. Within that, we are guests in those facilities, as we mentioned before. They run them, they own them, they're inviting us in, we are guests. So as guests, we align to both the standards of Nightingale College as a facility, but also to the requirements of that clinical partner. So they may have their own standards as well. We are guests, we adhere to both. Clients are partners, it's a privilege to be in their spaces, whatever kind of space it is. Please treat it as a privilege. Treat it as a wonderful experience. It's a contract between us and them. That means our appearance, our attitude, our language within those facilities, all of that matters. It also means every engagement, technically, is a job interview. For those of you who've been in nursing and healthcare for a while, you know it's a small community. As vast as it is across the United States, it is really a small community. So if you burn bridges in facilities, even if you never in your life want to go back to that particular LTAC again, it's a small community. People talk. It may burn bridges for other opportunities that you're more interested in. Please treat every experience that you have in facilities as a job interview. How you prepare yourself, how you comport, how you act is important. And also ethical behavior. We all know that integrity is the bedrock of nursing. People are coming to nurses and healthcare facilities at their most vulnerable point. They don't always want to be there, usually don't want to be there, but they're in a vulnerable situation they can't solve otherwise. They have to put their trust in you. The integrity of how we comport, how we present ourselves is important. Always act with integrity within this space to continue the profession to be seen as one of the most trustworthy out of all professions. It keeps coming in as number one. It's important that it continues there because of how crucial the health outcomes are for individuals. Also, our systems and processes matter. We have lots of systems here to help try to make you successful. Lots of situations to try to provide more opportunities. We are not a high stakes program, meaning that even if you fail a class, many programs will kick you out at a single failure. We have a 3 attempt policy. So if you fail once, you can come back and do it again. After the 3rd attempt in that class is when we draw a line, because now there may be other factors and it may not be the best time to continue, and we do not want to continue taking your money, which is also a big part of that. Every one of those attempts costs you money, and we do not want to be the place that you're draining money and we're not able to provide you what you need. So recognize that it's as much for you as it is us saying that maybe now is not the right time. Again. Also, response to challenge is also key. We talked about the struggles you're going to encounter. We know you're a holistic individual and other factors may impact how you present in other spaces. But please, as you're thinking about that, how do you want to present? How do you want to be in a particular space? That self-governance is up to you. Consider what that looks like. And also, where do you go for support and understanding, and whose values do you value? That whose values do you value is important to consider always. We mentioned that one of our core values is building community, which means that we value everyone in this space. And with that, we've run through all the major components that we have as far as the presentation and what the Director of Nursing would like for you to have initially. I just wanted to open up for other questions. We've gone through a lot. I've talked a lot. You feeling okay? Everyone's still breathing? Yeah. Okay. I haven't completely lost you. You're not jelly already in the head? Okay, we're good. Any other questions that you may have? Anyone online who may have additional questions? Happy to answer anything that I'm able to at the start of this moment in your journey.
I have a few questions. You mentioned failing the class 3 times. Can you come back after that? Maybe after like 6 months, take a break and come back? Or never you can come back at all?
There is the opportunity to come back. You'd want to work with your admissions advisor because there may be things that either were happening in your own life that we want to help you to create balance before coming back, or it may be that there are some other gaps that we may need to fill, which we would work with you in trying to have filled before we allow you right back in. Again, there's money attached, there's time attached, and we also don't want to just keep taking money if we're not getting you to the next phase of your journey. Like, that's not who we want to be as an institution. So we're very cautious about how we end up continuing people. We want to provide those opportunities, but we also don't want to string what we take in that same space. That's not who we want to be. Yeah. So it would be a negotiated conversation with your admissions advisor about what that looks like and how we can support you in coming back, not just, yeah, swing back in, pay more money. It's a lot. It's a lot to take on, so we don't want to be cavalier about that. Brianne, do we have anything in the chat? Oh, sorry.
There is a few. A few learners keep asking about the California Pilots program. If you can give any other details about that or clarifications.
Depends on what you mean by California pilot.
The question says, ask about the California Pilot program, please.
I would need more information. So we have been working on a pilot right now that works with people on their HESI exams for people who score within a particular range. The policy has been a little bit more hard and fast, and we're trying to figure out, is there a way that we can continue to provide additional support and allow people to progress rather than make it quite so hard and fast. We're in a pilot program to see how well we're able to do some remediation and support. It's not a full rollout at this point, but we're working on how we could help support people through that. That is a pilot we're doing. It's not specific to California. So I'd want a little more clarity on that.
Possibly DFCs, it looks like, questions on the pilot program for DFCs.
That may be referring to where we send people to do rotations. So where they may be placed for their DFCs. We've been trying to pull people back closer to the geographical region. There are many in California right now that have to travel to the East Coast out here to do some of their rotations simply because of the pressures. You saw our grid about where people are located. A lot of them are out west, and that means there's a lot of pressure on our western partners. And so because we have so many learners in California as well, spreading that out across the country allows us to make sure everyone gets a meaningful DFC experience. But there's work to try to pull people back as we've continued to expand our clinical partner outreach, so that they don't have to travel quite as far. If that's what they're referring to, again, it would be it'll be a conversation within the scheduling when they get their initial schedules as to where we're able to get them placed.
All right, do LPNs have to do HESIs, and do they also receive the nursing kits?
Yes and yes. So LPNs, depending on where you're coming in, if you're coming in as an LPN to ASN in that program, you have initial HESIs that you do during your admission cycle that help with your placement into the program to ensure that you've got the skills in that space. But also in your program, just like everyone else, depending on the course that you're in, there are HESIs attached to individual courses. So there are still HESIs that you would take.
What happens if you're given your SOFI assignment, but at the moment you cannot go because of something personal or financial strains or something coming up? How do you fix that?
That form that has your DFC rotational experience that you can reach out to scheduling support to let them know what's happening, and we can try to figure out if there's a way that we can rearrange or to find another placement for you. Again, there are some things that are considered approved for immediate reschedule and some things that would not. Mere preference is generally not, but there are some other legitimate things that may come up in your life that we would want to work around. But you would work and communicate. I'd say work early and often with schedule support. Anything else, Brian?
What was the California bill that was mentioned? Will that potentially affect California students' education through Nightingale?
Yes. So the bill is, again, going through the House and Senate right now. It is trying to approve, as an out-of-state program, our ability to do rotations in the state of California. If that gets passed, that means that we would not need to, we would not be required to send learners out of the state, but we would be able to start using clinical partners in the state of California to start doing DFC rotations. So it would impact the education you receive because you'd be able to do your DFCs closer to home, ideally. So there are opportunities if you want to see that happen, if you're a California learner particularly, and you want to be able to do rotations in your state, I would encourage you to support and encourage your state legislators to approve the resolution so that we'd be able to offer that in your state. Right now, you are required by state law to travel outside of California to complete your DFCs, and we don't have any option or choice around that at the moment.
There's a few more. How and when do they order scrubs, as well as badges? When do they receive badges?
Yeah, that information will be part of your initial skills kits in your fundamentals course. So if you're only in your GE only semester, if you still have some of those to do before you start your first nursing course, don't worry about it. You'll be getting that information later. Same thing with your scrubs and badges. That will come with your information around your skills kits, which again will be sent at the end of ad drop. So you have a little bit of time before you have to do that information, but it will be sent to you through email. So watch your email for information around how to schedule your scrubs.
There is another clarification or a question on DFCs in Washington.
Yep.
I just clarified, and basically we're currently going back and forth in communications with the Board of Nursing of Washington State.
We are.
To get on-ground activities. That doesn't mean that those will be happening currently because there's processes to get open.
Yep.
after approval.
Yes, and there are certain states like that. So I've mentioned California quite a bit because we have a large contingent of California nurses who are in the program, but that is also true in other states like Texas, Washington, where you also need to travel outside of the state to complete your DFCs. It entirely depends on state law whether we're able to perform on-ground DFCs in your space. Certain states currently don't allow it. So many of your states do. Again, there's a list on the website that goes through which states allow for on-ground and which states don't. You can take a look at that if you're interested in seeing what that list looks like. It should have also been discussed during your admissions process. But again, more information will be forthcoming. Everybody is considered as part of a remote travel DFC. Again, that helps provide the greatest opportunity for us to provide the best experience for you. But some of you will be able to stay within your state, and some of you will need to be traveling outside. Washington is one of those states where you still need to travel. And we are in negotiations with the Board of Nursing in the state of Washington to change that.
There is a lot of learners asking about how they can support us in California with the bill.
Yeah, if you want to get involved with that, we can send out more information again here at the start of the semester. I'd say just watch your email. We'll send out another announcement. I'll work with communications to get that out here soon. But right now, it's mainly getting a hold of your legislature. We have some information around what the bill looks like, what it's called, so that when you make that communication with your representative, that they know what that is. But we can send that back out to all new learners. We've sent it out previously, so all current existing learners in California have that. We can send it out again so that our new learners can also participate in that initiative. But I'll take a note and we will work on getting that out to you. And thank you in advance if you're going to help us in California. It's meaningful. Meaningful for you, honestly, and it's meaningful for the nursing shortage in California, which California has one of the most acute nursing shortages in the nation. So it is significant. There were two questions in the room. I want to grab those and then we'll come back if there are any other additional. Brianne, you had one and then we'll come back here.
For the component, like the background check, CPR, when should we start gathering this information?
Sorry, I can't hear.
The component, when should we start gathering the information? CPR, background check, those information, when should we start gathering?
Start gathering for the Complio?
Yeah.
Make sure you got your credentialing?
Yeah.
Depends. Are you doing your DFC rotations this semester?
I'm doing BSN 206 this semester.
Okay. 206 does not have a clinical rotation space, but this is the semester where you'll need to get that information in so that you're credentialed and ready to go for next semester in your rotation. So I would start gathering if you're in 205 or 206 or any of your early 200 courses, start gathering your Complio information to start getting that in. Your CPR, your vaccinations, your background check, all those things that may be, again, they are state specific around what those look like. I would start getting those in now.
Are you going to receive an email from the school first?
Yes. Scheduling board will reach out to you to walk through what your credentialing needs are. Again, it's not necessary day one, so that's why you haven't received it day one. We're giving you a little bit of time to get in and acclimate and start getting into some of your courses, and then more information will be coming. But if you have that information, it may be good to start gathering yourself so that you're ready to start uploading once they give you that information to upload. Yeah, you haven't missed anything yet. You're okay. Go ahead.
Actually, you already answered my question.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Yeah, about Complio 2, about getting credentialed. Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, credentialing and those things are complex and nerve-wracking, and there are lots of different components to it. And of course, different kinds of vaccinations require like the two-step when you're talking about tuberculosis and those kinds of things, and it takes time. So I'm glad you're already thinking about what you need to do to get ready for that. But you have a little bit of time. You have this semester to get yourself clean. But yeah, information will be going out with deadlines to get yourself ready. Brianne, was there something else in the chat?
Will you just clarify on when clinicals will be sent to learners, like the time frame?
Yeah. Unless you have a rotation that's happening week 3 or 4 in that first immediacy, because again, we want to provide you a couple of weeks to get your travel arrangements in plan. Unless you're in weeks 3 or 4, which typically we don't send brand new learners to those first rotations, so we can get you in, make sure get you past the ad drop, all of those kinds of things. Then those clinical rotations will be sent out to you. And again, they're usually sent about at least a month before you're required to do the on-ground. So you're still okay. Don't worry. Those have not been sent out to you yet. And that is by design. So you haven't missed anything. Anything else?
There is some clarification needed about when people will receive Complio information or how Complio gets sent out.
Yeah, again, watch your emails. Complio, it's part of your course. Your early course is there in getting prepared for your clinical rotations. So there's information both in your course. There will also be information sent out by email, by schedule support, and by credentialing support. And they will be helping you walk through that process. Recognize again that you have a couple of weeks, even probably the first 2 months of the semester, to start gathering and getting that stuff together before it needs to be in and due for them to schedule your clinical rotations. So you have a little bit of time, you're okay, but you will be receiving information coming out here in the next few weeks on how to get that process started so that you can fit that into your schedule and start getting those pieces together. Yeah, there's no cause for panic yet. Do it okay.
A couple more questions. Someone's asking about the sponsorship program.
Yep. Again, sponsorship program right now, it's in its early stages. Part of the big thing that we would want or need from anyone who's interested in that program is to fill out a survey. We'll resend that survey form. Brianna, I don't know if Jonathan has sent that to you. We can throw it in the chat. If he has not, then we'll work on that. We'll get it sent out to everyone who's in the New Learner Pop. But again, it's an opportunity for you to just simply sign up and say that you're interested, and here are the things that you would be interested in looking at if a sponsorship of that kind is available, at which point then the team will use that to try to find those partners and connect those partners. So there's no immediate timeline that we can get those immediately attached, because it will depend on what we can get in partnerships and how we were able to connect you. But the more we know, and the more we know your interest in that, the more we can send that to partners and work with them to find those sponsorships. So we will send you the information so that you can sign up and give us the information that how you want to be considered, if you want to be considered. If you don't, I would still encourage you to click the link and simply say not interested, because then we'll leave you alone. You can always go back at any time and say that you are interested in the future, but it just lets us know kind of the population set for what sponsorships are out there, what people are interested in at the moment. So I encourage you to at least fill it out one way or the other.
That's what you like.
Yes, you can. Wow, this one's bigger. And it glows more, so now I'm Technicolor.
Payment plans. When are
Yep.
those due? How can they solve those problems if they can't figure it out?
Yeah. Again, I made the announcement at the very top of the presentation here. Payment plans. If you're not on one, you'll need to get on one. Again, there is information with your learner funding advisor. If you remember who you talked to in learner funding advising, if you have questions around that, you can reach back out to them and just validate. Again, there's also information that's going out by email today that also gives you some instruction that you can go and do a self-check. And then if you have additional questions, you can reach out again just to make sure. I'm one of those people that verifies twice, so I get it if that's the need to do your own individual check and then call in just to say, am I clear? Great. Done. You're welcome to do both. But your learner funding advisor will be the person that you'll need to coordinate just to make sure you're in the clear. And the payment plans, again, we don't need you to have made a big cash infusion to keep yourself in space. It's just we need to know that you're on a plan and you're ready to go. So we need that by the end of ad drop. That's the standard that's in the catalog. So you just need to make sure in the next 2 weeks that you've coordinated with learner funding advising and that you're ready to go, one way or the other. Anything last? I'm feeling the energy.
On your, we lost audio.
I leave that to Ron. We lost it. Good now.
You're not mine.
I have audio. I don't have audio.
Oh, we're back.
We're back. Oh, okay. I haven't changed. Learner funding advising? Okay. If you don't have a payment plan, you'll want to get on one. If you do have one, email will go out today. You can verify yourself where you are in your funding process. If you have questions around that, you are welcome to reach out to your learner funding advisor, who you worked with through your admissions process and your intake process, etc., to get you all set up, and you can validate that you're in the clear. Again, we're not asking everyone to make a major cash infusion here in the first 2 weeks. We just need to know that you're on a plan, you're ready to go. That's all we're asking, is we just need to make sure everybody's ready to go. So watch your email. Again, more information coming out, and if you have questions, your learner funding advisor is happy to help support you. Yeah? No? Team back there is looking at each other panicky. Am I still on mic? Do I have to repeat myself a third time?
I can't hear you. Some people say they can still hear you, others say they can't. This is so just smile and wave. Smile and wave.
I can smile and wave. You know, at one point, this goes back into my history. This is the fun little personification. I am a licensed or certified image consultant, and for a half minute, because I worked in theater, I also helped with pageants. So if you want to learn how to wave, I can help you out. Elbow, elbow, wrist, wrist. We can get this done.
Half can hear and there's a few that can't.
My apologies to half the room who's electing not to hear me.
Your wave is beautiful.
Thank you. As I did used to work pageants, I hope it is.
One last question, and we'll close it with this because I like it. What's your all-time favorite quote?
Oh, that's a great question. I'm going to go with a quote that kind of breeds off of a couple of other quotes. So you've got quotes that say, be the change you want to see in the world, or things like that. Something that my grandpa would always say. He lived with us for a while before he passed. He passed while he was with us. And the question he would ask when we'd come in the door was, have you done any good in the world today? And that's just how he framed it. How we chose to take that question was up to us. What kind of good we felt we had done was up to us, but he just asked the question, have you done any good in the world today? That's all he wanted to know. So I'm going to go with my grandpa for the win on that one. All right. Well, again, if you have any additional questions, for those of you who are all online or all in your different spaces, again, you can reach out to your learner success strategist. You can reach out to registration management. If you have questions about payment plans, reach out to your learner funding advisor. That's a lot of people I'm sending you to, but you can decide how you want to engage. I would encourage you to dive into your courses, to meet your faculty, to meet your fellow learners. Again, you're all on this interesting and exciting journey all together. It's going to be challenging. I commend you for stepping into the space. I hope this is the right time for you. If it is, we are behind you. We want you to be successful. We want to see you make it all the way to the end. I see you at the beginning. I'm hoping to see you when you walk across the stage. So anything we can do to help to get you there, that's something that brings me tremendous joy. So hoping to see you all at the end of this journey as well. And in the meantime, I commend you. I commend your families. I commend your friends who aren't going to see you as much as they want to. I commend you, your children who are going to be along this journey with you, your family, your employers, all those who you interact with. It's going to be life-changing for you, for your families, for your communities. So congratulations on making it to this phase. I hope to see you at the end. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. And again, if you have any questions, please reach out. But looking forward to seeing you. Thank you, everyone.